It is day 3 of our Cape Town, South Africa trip. And today we're gonna go to a museum and we're gonna see where the first heart transplant took place. And then after the museum, we're gonna come back to the team house, we're gonna have lunch, and then we're gonna head out to the kids clubs again. And then we'll come back and we will listen to another speaker, and we will talk about the Gospel of Luke tonight. Yesterday was Mark, day before was Matthew, so we're going through all the Gospels. And yeah, so today's gonna be pretty cool and exciting. So come along with us today. So we're here, we're at the hospital where the first heart transplant.
Heart transplant. Okay. So here on the table we have Louis Washkansky, our patient. This is Professor Joseph Ozinski. Here we have Professor Barnard. That is Dr. Hewitson, his right-hand man. And this here is Dr. Hitchcock. My colleague Dini, she's sitting in the back there at the bypass machine. All right. I did ask her, Dini, what does it feel like when you see yourself sitting here? She's most upset that she wasn't given, that they didn't make her a lady like this one. All right. Our timeline, very important. Our accident took place on the Saturday afternoon, 2nd of December, between 1 and 2 in the afternoon. By 3 o'clock, Denise was brought downstairs into our ER and hooked up to our life support. And then it took the 2 neuros right up until 10 p.m. on that Saturday evening to sign her over to Chris and his team. So you can imagine the immense amount of pressure on them for the world's first brain dead patient. So they ran their tests and they reran and they reran and they really hoped that there was going to be some kind of brain activity, that they didn't have to sign her over to Chris because they knew what his intentions were. But at 10 p.m. there was nothing. And she was deteriorating on life support, so they signed her over. That gave Chris and his team the opportunity to speak to her father and get his permission. According to Chris, that conversation took about 20 minutes. Then only did they telephone these 2 groups to come in. They were all at home, only Chris was here. So they had to travel and get here. So they started in theatre at 1 a.m. All right, on the Sunday morning. Then Louis' new heart beating his chest for the first time at 2 minutes to 6. All right. Full operating time, 8.5 hours. Okay. So that is our timeline. How they do a heart transplant is actually not that difficult. And it's no offense to any cardiac surgeons, but it is like a sewing lesson. Okay, so there's 4 arteries that are cut out and there's 4 arteries that need to be sewn back in. Okay, so they opened up the chest cavity using this one because it has a serial number on it, we know that. And then they remove the sick heart and they sew in the new one using that thread. Still exactly the same today. Okay, that hasn't changed. Then they would need to start an fibrillation, which they did using our paddles. Not the same as what you see on the TV, the big ones from the outside, the smaller ones on the inside. And once they've got their heartbeat and everything's okay, they put back the lung, and then they have to close you up again. And they use that wire to do so. Alright, so they pull your chest cavity back together again and they wire you up. Still the same today, that hasn't changed, it's a great method. This is the internal cast, if you want to call it that. Okay, so that also stays behind. Any questions? Okay, we have our blood rags here. They had one complication that night, it was dismissed as a minor. So there's only 2 arteries that flow right through your heart. One is your femoral and the other one your aorta. And they used the femoral artery to attach the bypass machine to this patient. But there was a blockage and that left his blood pressure unstable. So they had to move the tube to the aorta. And in this movement, Chris forgot to tell the nurse here to clamp the tube. So when he removed it, it was almost like a hosepipe effect. Alright. So they had to soak up the blood with the rags and then they had to weigh it to get an estimated blood mass. Alright. And then Deanie dismissed it as a minor. She said, "Oh Cindy, it took me 2 minutes to manually remove all the air out of that tube for it to be reconnected." Can you imagine the tension in those 2 minutes in this theatre? Alright. We've had so many university professors ask us, especially in the music, what music were they playing in theatre? What was happening? Nothing. Alright, it was dead silence. And these are the original hearts. Okay. This heart here is Denise Dobbs. Alright, like I said, the most famous heart in the world. Okay. All Professor Barnard's suturing can also be seen when you come for a closer look. This area here at the bottom, it looks like it's cut here like this, but those are the 4 chambers. This is her lower ventricle of her heart. Okay. This is the lower ventricle of Louis Washkansky. So if you're comparing this area to that one. You can actually see how enlarged his heart was. And all the scar tissue there on the inside, he had 3 heart attacks before this operation. Okay. Our first heart donor, our second, as I mentioned, South Africa was still in apartheid back then. So when they took a black man's heart and they put it into a white man's body, what do you think happened in the government? There was a political uproar. So our government passed the best law, and that is the anonymous law. So today, it doesn't matter. You're not going to know who your donor is, okay? Because it doesn't carry any reverend. You know what I mean? Okay. So his name was Clive Hout, and he became our second heart donor, and his heart went to Dr. Philip Blauberg, patient number 2, and that's his lower ventricle of his heart. This here, this rotten one over here, that is Dorothy Fisher, patient number 5. That's her heart before the operation. Okay.
Why is it?
That is cardiomyopathy. All right, so that is a diseased heart. All right, that's what it would look like. And I usually tell the kids to, just because I can, that she was a smoker, but she possibly was. All right, she possibly was. Back then it was fashionable to smoke. Okay. Any questions? Are we good?
Here's the guest book.
It is a very
Stuff. What's that supposed to be symbolic of?
I don't know, I feel like he's crying.
got back from the kids clubs. They were fantastic, very sweet. We got to sing Great Are You Lord, and that was very special.
It made me cry.
Made me cry too.
It was very, very special.
Tears, literal
Touching.
tears.
I actually think I'll put the audio at least of that in here. Surely I can do that. Because I snuck my camera out a little bit.
You sneaked a sneaky peek.
Yeah, snuck a peek. I snuck. And now we're getting ready to go down to the beach. So it's a little brighter today than it was yesterday. Not as gloomy.
Are you coming?
So this sunset, you're good. This sunset is going to be gorgeous. But yeah, so we sang Great Are You Lord, and we played a lot of musical chairs, and we did a lot of Zumba like dances, so we're gonna be sore once again tomorrow, I think.